Hey guys, we're driving the new Mitsubishi Xpander because finally we can be out on the road again with no more travel restrictions under the CMCO. So yeah, it has been a long time coming, but we finally get to drive this thing. You've already seen our walk around video of this car even before it was launched, where we showed exactly just how practical this crossover SUV MPV is. Just to manage your expectations a little bit, this is a first impressions video because this is a very short drive of around 200 to 300 kilometers only. We'll bring you a much more detailed, much more in-depth review later on, and our BM colleagues will even compare it against its natural key rival, the Honda BR-V. But let's start with a quick introduction of what this car is about. This is basically a small, affordable MPV, much in the same veins as the Honda BR-V. Like the Honda, technically this is an MPV, a multi-purpose vehicle. But with the SUV craze going all around the world, Mitsubishi and as well as Honda, they've decided to make the cars look to be styled like an SUV, to give it a little bit of that rugged edge, especially on the outside. This car is priced at just over 91,000 ringgit with SSD exemptions, so you're only looking at one key rival, which is the BR-V. There are slightly cheaper options such as the Pro 2 Alza, the Toyota Avanza, but I think those things should no longer be on sale today because as an MPV with no ESP, that is shameful. Then there's also the Toyota Rush. But then again, we all know that is exactly the same car as the Pro 2 Aros. So if you really like that car, you might as well just buy the Aros and save you a ton of cash. So yes, like I said, the only key rival for this car is the Honda BR-V, which is slightly more expensive, about 2,000 ringgit more expensive than this one. Now I use the word new with this car very lightly because it's actually not very new at all. The Xpander has been around in other markets for 3 years, 4 years now. So yeah, it's not exactly new. It is new to our market, however, and at least we are getting the latest facelifted version. So in terms of looks, I think this car looks fantastic. On the outside, it looks like nothing else on the road, especially in this MPV class. Most MPVs look extremely boring. This one looks anything but. Mitsubishi's dynamic shield face works wonders up front to make this car look really like a standout star that it is. In a way, this is a bit of a love it or hate it kind of design. Some people love it, others absolutely detest it. They can't stand this car at all. But I suppose the general public reception to this car has been fairly positive, with over 4,000 units booked since its launch just 2 months ago. Now, Mitsubishi Motors Malaysia has a bit of a problem with such a high demand because they only plan to make at most 500 units per month, and now they have over 4,000 orders to fill. So yeah, the waiting list for this car is going to be quite a bit longer than you may expect, but then again, for a brand new car launch like this, that is to be expected. It's not something out of the ordinary. Still on the looks, the headlamps are split to double tiers where the top eyebrows are not in fact the main headlamps. Those are just the LED positioning lamps. The main headlamps are further down where you'd think that those are the fog lamps, but in fact fog lamps are further down below. Now the fog lamps also double up as this car's daytime running lights, but it just looks like you've left your fog lights on, which, you know, in Malaysia it just looks like you're being a p***. It's a bit of a shame that they couldn't just rewire the positioning lamps to be daytime running lights, LED DRLs, but yeah, that's just the way it is. But at least the main headlights are full LED units, which is a big upgrade over the halogens on the BR-V. But on the flip side, the BR-V does have LED DRLs, which was fitted exclusively for the Malaysian market. But in any case, it's not that MMM did not do anything that's specific to the Malaysian market with the Xpander. The interior over here has been specially tuned to suit Malaysian tastes. This car was primarily designed for the Indonesian market, and over there, a beige, a light tan interior is the norm. But of course, that's not going to be accepted well by Malaysians. We've seen the Proton Ertiga with a full beige fabric interior that did not fly well with owners at all. So over here, the interior is now full black. I think it looks a lot nicer, it looks a lot more sporty compared to the half black, half tan interior in other markets. And the seats themselves are fully covered in leather, which of course is a requirement by Malaysian buyers. The seats themselves, I'm not a big fan of. The quilting looks a little bit cheap, I think, but then again, some people do like it, so yeah, there's that. There's also no center armrest, not a big problem for me, but yeah, also again, some people require, they just need having an armrest to rest their arms on. But on the other hand, this is the only car in the class to have a properly adjustable steering wheel. This has tilt and telescopic adjustability, so yeah, you can get your perfect driving position in this car, which is going to be difficult to achieve in the other cars because they only have tilt adjustment. I think that is a lot more crucial than the seat comfort itself, because that allows you to find your exact ideal driving position. If you fail to do so, which can be a problem with cars without proper steering adjustment, you'll always be driving in a compromised position that you don't really like. In the long run, that gets very annoying very quickly. Speaking of the seating position, this car, you feel like you're sitting in a very traditional MPV. You sit very high, you sit very upright, and even the steering angle is angled very slightly, a bit like an old school van. It positions you very, very upright, and that's a good thing because it gives you a fantastic view out of the car. There's barely any blind spots that you can't see. The pillars are very thin, there's a lot of gap between the pillar and the side mirrors, and visibility out is all around fantastic. Now moving on to the rest of the interior, the dashboard is very well set out. It's a very simple design, it's nowhere near as fancy as those you've seen in other cars such as the Toyota Rush or whatnot, but I think simplicity works wonders over here. It's very easy to use. There are just 3 big knobs over here for your aircon. It's manual controls, not the fancier digital aircon that you find in the BRV, but in a car like this, that's all you need really. At the top is a big 9-inch touchscreen, which looks a little bit like an aftermarket item, but then again, it works well, it looks pretty good. The interface is quick and snappy, and the best part is it has full Apple CarPlay and Android Auto functionality. In this day and age, having CarPlay or Android Auto on your car as standard is absolutely a must-have. Immediately, it means that you don't have to switch to a different head unit later on, and that may void your car's official warranty. Having CarPlay and Android Auto also means that the system will update itself, so it will always feel contemporary even 5-10 years down the road. Do you remember how ugly old touchscreen units from 5 to 10 years ago look today? Yeah, but not with Apple CarPlay, because the system will always update itself, always add in the newer features that you might need. So that itself is a godsend. That again is a major advantage this car has over the Honda BRV. But one thing, while having CarPlay is good, this car's all-around view monitor, or ARM as Mitsubishi calls it, is absolutely terrible. It's perhaps one of the worst looking 360-degree cameras I've seen yet. Another item that Mitsubishi Motors Malaysia has added to suit Malaysian taste is the standard fitment of a DVR, a dash cam on this car. So once you buy this car, you really don't have to buy any other accessories at all. Everything has been done for you. A few things that you may want to do to this car is perhaps put on a body kit or maybe different wheels, and Mitsubishi Motors Malaysia has even shown 2 really cool looking concepts on how wild you can go with this car, the tuning potential of this car. I think they might not suit everybody's taste, but yeah, they can look very, very striking. I think the modding potential of this car, at least visually, is massive. Now a quick one on this car's practicality features before we move on to the driving dynamics, which of course is the main point of this car, right? The rear seats of this car, the acid test of an MPV, is always how useful are the rear seats in the real world. Now this is where this car flexes its muscles over its main rivals, because the last row seats, by far and away the best in the class. The Honda BR-V has very decent, very usable rear seats. In terms of space, it's not too bad, but you do sit very low to the ground. You're almost sitting on the floor with your knees high up, almost near your chest, near your face. With the Xpander, you sit like a normal seating. It's very, very comfortable. And in terms of leg room, in terms of headroom, is extremely good as well. Even for adults, I think you'll be surprised how a tall adult can fit in the back. Like we've already shown you before that you can fit 3 full-size adults in each one of the 3 rows of this car. So in most small MPVs, they are more than likely to be just a 5+2 seater, but with the Xpander, it's definitely a proper 7-seater. The practicality factors extend beyond seating itself. The boot, with all the seats up, it's fairly small. It's enough for 1 or 2 duffel bags or a few backpacks and not much more. But once you start folding the rear seats down, again, it stretches its advantage over the BR-V, because this folds completely flat like in a much higher end MPVs and SUVs. So with this way, you can just load your bigger items, your big long things from IKEA or whatever. You can just tip it in and push it all the way through. Whereas in the BR-V, you've got uneven surfaces, you've got holes, you've got dips, so you can't really just push things in. Here is a lot easier, and if you do fold all the seats down, it's the biggest in the class again. I think the BR-V will run this car close in terms of absolute cabin space, but overall, I think if you look into the total conveniences of this car, this is the clear winner over here. You get loads of cubby holes throughout the entire car. In the front, you've got a double glove box, you've got multiple cup holders, you've got a deep bin over here, and under the rear boot, there's even a hidden compartment for you to keep your, wet clothes, your wet market shopping bags, your dirty shoes and whatnot. There's also a hidden shoe compartment under the left front passenger seat. That is very clever packaging indeed. Alright, now moving on to this car's driving dynamics. We'll start with the engine first. Up front is a 1.5 litre all aluminium Myvec engine. This motor makes not much, 104 PS and 141 Newton meters of torque. So that sounds underwhelming to you. That's because it is. Its closest rival, the BR-V, makes a lot more power, 120 PS, 145 Newton meters of torque. But as you drive the car in a normal manner, as how you would drive your own MPV, your own people carrier, as your own family car, I don't think it's underpowered at all. It's more than adequate, I think. This car is clearly geared to give you extra grunt on the low end. I think the first and second gears are placed very, very low, and the third and fourth are very high. So that gives you a very peppy feel on the low end. This car does not feel like it's sluggish, like it's slow to respond at all. So yeah, 104 PS doesn't sound like much, but that's more than enough for a car like this. As the speeds rise, maybe when you're on the highway speeds and you're accelerating, then you may feel like it's a little bit slow, a little bit lethargic, but then again, you really shouldn't be driving much faster than 110 anyway. Another deterrent from driving fast is this car's refinement. It's just so quiet when you're driving it like a sane person. Anything below 100 kilometers per hour, you almost don't hear any road noises, you don't hear any wind noises. It's almost pin drop silent. But once you go above 110, 120, the wind noise starts creeping in, and yeah, it's a little bit less pleasant. But keep it below 110, it's absolutely perfect. One thing I have to comment with this car is that the engine is extremely smooth, it's very quiet, but it doesn't sound like it's struggling like sometimes the Honda BR-V's engine does. It feels a lot smoother and more effortless with this car. But with this car having a 4-speed automatic transmission, you do get the drawbacks of having so little gears, because like I said, the first two gears, first and second, are very low down for that peppy feel of the line. Gears 3 and 4 are placed way too high with a massive gap between second and third. So if you're going uphill, for instance, you may feel like the car is jumping in between gears, second and third, and the jump is huge. You may be cruising along in third and then you need a little bit of extra power. You press your foot a little bit down and the engine jumps much higher, 3,000-4,000 revs higher than before. It can be a little bit alarming, but I think you do get used to it. I still think it's more natural and much more direct feeling compared to the CVT in the Honda BR-V. You can definitely feel that the Honda BR-V is the faster car, but at the same time you can feel that that car is a lot louder in terms of its engine noise, in terms of its NVH, in terms of its refinement. And CVT usually is not to everyone's liking. There's a little bit of that rubber bending effect which is completely missing with this car's more natural feeling 4AT. So in terms of engine, it's a matter of preference really. If you want more power, you go with the Honda, but you want a much more refined feeling, it has to be the Xpander. Just a quick one on fuel consumption. Over around 200 kilometers of mixed road between city town traffic, back roads and highways, this car has averaged between 6.5 to 7 liters per 100 kilometers. That's not too bad. Of course, mileage will vary depending on your road conditions and of course your driving style and your number of passengers as well. But I think with the way we've been driving this car, that's not too bad. That's actually quite good really. Now on to the handling, and I guess this is where it's a little bit of a disappointment, but then again it's not really relevant because this after all is a family mover. This is an MPV. It's not a car that you want to go up carving, gunting or whatever. If you will, yeah, you bought the wrong car, mate. So the steering wheel feels very light at first, and that is something you'll get used to very quickly. But when you're cruising along on the highway, it does feel like it's floating a little bit. I find myself having to correct my steering angle every now and then because the car feels like it's sort of swerving out into the lane. But yeah, you do get used to this very quickly. But before you do that, it can feel very unnerving and a little bit annoying. But once you go to higher speeds, of course, the steering loads up and it's actually quite nice. It has a very linear and a very direct feel. There's a bit of a sporty hit to it as well. The dampers are doing very well to absorb mid-corner bumps and whatnot. But then again, let's not talk about handling too much because this is still a high-riding MPV. The ground clearance of this car is 205 mm. That is higher than quite a few proper SUVs out there. And because this was primarily designed for Indonesia, and you know the roads are over there. If you think Malaysian roads are bad, wait till you see the ones that's there. But that can be a good thing for Malaysian roads as well, because every now and then we do get flash floods here and there. With this car, you don't have to worry, you don't have to drive that slow through it. You can just, you know, glide over and it's all good. You can of course go through a little bit of an off-roading as Mitsubishi has shown us, but yeah, this car can do it, but it's not advisable because it's front-wheel drive, not all-wheel drive. But yeah, you can do it. Now on to what I think is this car's best aspect, its ride quality. This has a fantastic set of dampers. It just absorbs bumps so well, especially for an affordable car like this. It rides like a much more expensive car. You wouldn't expect a car in this price range to ride as well as this. At low speeds, it's very smooth. This car adds on a little bit of a gliding, a bit of a floating motion to it, and I think that's fantastic. As you speed up a little bit, as you go up to the highways, it gets a little bit less planted, I would say. But overall, I would still say that this car rides beautifully for Malaysian roads. So overall, this car's driving dynamics, it's pretty good actually. The engine performance is actually better than you might think. and the handling is decent, perhaps not quite as good as the Honda BR-V, but in terms of ride quality, this car is absolutely fantastic. Driving dynamics aside, I think the only major downer for this car is the lack of safety features. This car has all the basics covered. Obviously, it's got electronic stability control. That puts it at a much better level than a few that I mentioned before, the Toyota Avanza, the Perodua Alza. But it only has 2 airbags, and that puts it a level below the likes of the Toyota Rush and Perodua Aruz. But then again, compared to its natural rival, the Honda BR-V, it's about the same as well. The BR-V also maxes out at 2 airbags and ESP. So while it's no better than the BR-V, it's no worse either. So yeah, just to wrap it up, I think this is still a really good, affordable MPV for you and your family. It's extremely practical. Driving dynamics is very decent indeed. It's got all the tech that you need in terms of the in-car entertainment. The screen is fantastic. There are 1 or 2 drawbacks here and there, like the 360 camera, the safety bits, but overall I still think this can be a very good buy at this price range. So what do you think of the new Xpander? Let us know in the comments section below. What do you like about it? What don't you like about it? Anything you agree or even disagree with me on this car? Let me know in the comments section below. Thank you for watching and stay safe, everyone.